I had the pleasure of meeting Katelyn Marak last December when she came to my office on a number of occasions to sort of talk about applying for various grants. And I think what it was, and what it ended up being, is a long conversation about her life. And what impressed me was how indeed filled it is. Just to begin to tell you a little bit about her, Katelyn is a senior pre-law psychology major with minors in human biology, communication law, and dance. Since 2008, she has run her own charitable fundraising organization called Katie's Creations. I might say here in Northwest Indiana, right?
I guess it began under the mentorship of Porter County, but it's expanded nationally.
Something I didn't know. And she was the 2015 recipient of the J. Melville and Lucille G. Nelson Award in Psychology and Religion. Her presentation is entitled A Global Vision of the Public Good, Philanthropy as a Mechanism of Social Justice, for Social Justice.
Technology, oh goodness. I don't have one, so, because that's why. Okay. This is probably why it's a good thing that I didn't have a PowerPoint. What? Okay, okay. Dear goodness. Okay. As citizens of the world, how should we approach the global humanitarian projects of our present age? And how can cultural differences serve as a platform for empowerment, education, and exchange? Both social justice and appreciative community service frameworks insist upon systemic adjustments in the opposed or afflicted community. However, the desired outcomes attached to those adjustments require correcting the mechanisms by which global humanitarian efforts or volunteers themselves seek to improve those very conditions. Project construction, from selection to implementation and sustainment, centers on the particular needs in a particular context. Its achievement stems from a unified global conception of the public good, through which a culturally appreciative framework that transcends the religio-secular binary and fosters sustainable community development as a function of social justice initiatives. My discussion is aimed at unpacking this very statement. Civic engagement can both mediate and encompass the so-called tension of religio-secularism, functioning as a shared space for the flourishing of all humanist motives directed towards the public good. This larger philanthropic agenda opens up a shared space for lateral transcendence, in which a divine or human obligation towards the other overcomes the tension between the reasons propelling such action across cultures. Respect for motivational differences corresponds to an appreciation of differences in the lives we seek to improve. We have many options when we encounter difference. Compassionate action does not mean a complete convergence of values. Rather, volunteers must appreciate Kimwe Apaya's claim, quote, all cultures have enough overlap in their vocabulary of values to begin a conversation. For Hapaya, humanity is too loose of a global binding if lacking an engaged world citizenry and meaningful connections. Respecting the similarities between secular and religious philanthropic aims, the distinct features of a particular cultural medium must be maintained so far as to provide service tailored to those in need. Social justice arises out of an encompassment of the binary through emphasizing that targeted community's culture, and that serves as an operative framework to achieve a community that can then independently flourish. Last, I will apply all of these constructions to World Vision International. The descriptions of reality we ascribe to orients each of us within an evolving context. Secular and religious narratives are enmeshed with transcendent experiences and actions of an individual. These serve as the basis of human and divine obligations. Charles Taylor asserts in The Secular Age Quote, "For believers, the account of the place of fulfillment requires reference to God. That is something beyond human life and nature. Where for non-believers, this is not the case. They rather leave an open account or understand fulfillment in terms of the potential of human beings, understood more naturalistically. We are not ruthless or devoid of desire to make sense of our lives and procure a sense of fulfillment outside of personal gains. How can the religio-secular binary facilitate and strengthen our rootedness to such narratives? Philanthropy reconsiders the fixity of secular and the religious binary, opens up epistemological spaces concerning humanitarianism, community engagement, and notions of the good. Modernity affords individuals the option to select either narrative as one's primary avenue for philanthropic engagement, for both embody a compelling humanist concern, a desire for human fullness, and a comparative vision. Simon Way asserts, quote, "All human beings are absolutely identical insofar that they can be thought of as consisting of a center, which is an unquenchable desire for the good," end quote. In this respect, philanthropy encourages a transcendence of these particularism in recognizing the common end purposes of both narratives. However, our concerns regarding the outcome of philanthropic works must not exceed to the point at which the precise motivations driving such outcomes become negligible. The necessity to select either narrative with their particular poles requires that each of us consider what is precisely driving our individual actions. We must contemplate how selected narratives shape our actions, worldviews, and identity. For the human soul has the need of disciplined participation in a common task of public value. Individuals will be invested and more attuned to their contributions across cultures as a result. However, these operative spheres influence each other. We find ourselves influenced by more than one particular narrative. We transcend the binary in our individual and collective pursuits. We can respect similarities while accentuating the distinctive features of both divine and secularist human obligations to serve. Here are two shortened possible narratives. Secular humanism works towards an inclusive society through reason, experience, and shared human values. This is the essence of lateral transcendence. Each individual accepts the responsibility to uphold this obligation and so to live by it, concerned with the impact for the other. For the Christian, human fullness relies on belief in the acknowledgement of our position in reference to a higher transcendental being. Fullness is achieved through relationship with God that empowers the individual in his or her present condition. Religious and secular narratives constitute practice and values that are foundational in bestowing and delineating the obligation we have within this larger global humanitarian effort. Arising out of either a divine or human obligation contribute, an individual can be referred to as a humanist, defined as those who behave humanely towards others, or who tell us that we must treat human beings decently. In short, they are philanthropists. At the dawn of the 21st century, philanthropy has transcended geographical boundaries as a traditional motivation for underlying civic engagement and socio-political frameworks. It is truly an international phenomenon. One justification for the use of philanthropy as a mechanism for fostering social justice in a global context is that it challenges the volunteer to turn away from the reasons for volunteering solely in pursuit of one's gains or projects, which helps one step outside of their own cultural framework. It requires the servant to root their selective narrative for philanthropic engagement in a global project to illuminate the collective world vision of the public good that arises out of the accompaniment of this binary. We must develop a relational and appreciative framework of those people's narratives that we are helping, finding the intersections in motivations and shared ideals. Further, social justice initiatives arise out of an encompassment of the binary, emphasizing that targets society's culture. Social justice philanthropy has a higher vision in mind, to eliminate a pervasive need and empower the community from within its citizenry. It provides long-term societal benefits, confronting the problem at the source. The volunteer in the organization is contemplating the service in a larger context and purpose while collaborating with pre-existing structures. As a culturally mindful global philanthropist, it is not merely what is done, but how it is done. Culture encompasses the hallmarks, meanings, habitual actions, stories, and images through which people express their experiences and communicate with others. The symbolic meaning that we attach to people of other kinds of actions, gestures, and institutions often significantly affect the social standings of persons and their opportunities, writes Iris Young in Justice and the Politics of Difference. The cultures of both volunteers and recipients are integral. The fortunes of volunteering as a cultural institution will continue to function based off of the changing political and social climate. Further, Young advocates for an appreciation of social justice that acknowledges and attends to group differences. We must have a united vision to assist others as global citizens. Social justice movements must attend to differences at all times, rather than simply applying a stock solution. It assesses how structures either enable or constrain individuals. The theoretical constructions of my arguments are motivated by real-world applications of social justice philanthropy and its relationships to topics discussed in this conference. A unified global conception of the public good through a culturally appreciative framework that transcends the binary and fosters progressive community development as a function of social justice initiatives. Many areas of the world are increasingly losing their ability to provide basic infrastructures and social services. Christian organizations are stepping in. World Vision International, one of the largest transnational Christian NGOs, exemplifies the mutations in meaning that appear in philanthropy across localities, and nations. World Vision brings to light the necessary corrections by which humanitarian efforts and volunteers seek to improve the communities in a cross-national or culture-to-culture service effort. World Vision demonstrates the pressurized position international nonprofit organizations face in a commercially driven world. In its appeal to a larger audience of donors and recipients, World Vision would arguably not reach the benchmark with my proposed theory with respect to its child sponsorship programming. International sponsorship programs are commonplace as a developmental fundraising source. Transnational relationships of compassion and care are facilitated between a child and donor. It is anticipated that both will be transformative through interaction, which resonates with Western frameworks. Sponsorship emphasizes individual agency and accounts other modes of societal engagement and structures directly affecting the child and the community in name. The initiative presents competing narratives, splits and perpetuates the binary in a pseudo-social justice philanthropic project. At the heart of her dissertation on World Vision, Susan McDonough writes, quote, "Sponsorship attempts in many ways to disseminate and indigenize Western understandings of child, family, Christianity, and care by privileging and catering to those perspectives of the sponsors. But this does not happen. Local actors reinterpret these images through their own cultural matrix of meanings, leading to misunderstandings and feelings of frustration." End quote. Her work points out that if cross-cultural appreciation is absent in social justice philanthropy, then the religious identity of those targeted communities and cultures is dismissed in pursuit of sponsors. The need and desire of the local people are subordinate. If not reconsidered, global organizations will continue to exhibit homogenization and ineffectiveness. Further, it is not enough to check whether the targeted community's religion is acknowledged or not. If the targeted community's religion and cultural context is presumed static and remains unintegrated, a disjointed relationship will develop from a lack of fully engagement or appreciation. Social traditions are dynamic within a cultural context and the global sphere, laden with logic, symbols, and hierarchical structures that must be continuously considered anew. Cultural cliched pictures are sent to sponsors, and, quote, "Personal relationships initiated by sponsors give individuals a chance to feel as if they are making a difference in the face of what seems insurmountable, a larger political and economic process and injustice. Therefore, sponsorship diverts transnational development. How effective will social justice be if it's geared towards the Western giver, not the recipients and the structural causes of poverty itself. With regards to community, it is important that we realize and strengthen social fabric as much, or if not more, than cultivating economic resources and material goods. It's also important to consider prospective outcomes. As philanthropists, we are a collected humanity integrated by emotions, values, and aims across secular and religious spheres. This is what we should strive to be as citizens of the world. Thank you.